Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries, you are entering the conspiracy sector.
Well, welcome everyone to this very special program. I'm your host, Aubrey Batchelor. Sailing this amazing ship of knowledge with me is Chris Jacobs, and you are entering the conspiracy sector. Excuse me, I just spontaneously human combusted there for a bit. That is the topic today, and I can tell you throughout years of research in this wild field, this is one of those topics that we've talked about, like we mentioned pre-show, that you might forget about, but you'll never totally forget. It always resurfaces some way. And it's never been Chris or I's main subject of fascination by any means, but like I said, it keeps popping back up into play every now and then. And there have been very strange stories surrounding spontaneous human combustion. I know that there's been, I believe from the research, anywhere between 150 to 220 reported deaths on the death certificate since like 1830 or something like that that have been attributed towards spontaneous human combustion. And the weird things about that is SHC as it's called, has a lot of commonalities supposedly, but we're going to dive into a bunch of them a little bit and talk about them and theorize and blah 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 blah. But how you been doing, Chris?
Yeah, I've been doing pretty okay. If people saw my post on Facebook from yesterday, from the time of this recording, we had a bit of a massive storm that came through here and flooded the area. We had a shoreline up almost to the house last night, so
Yeah.
it was getting pretty creepy levels, but it subsided now.
Fishing in the front yard.
You could have with the amount of water there was. And yeah, it's not uncommon, but the ones that come up to the house like that are rare. So,
Mm-hmm.
and to where you could fish off the porch. So yeah, that's how bad that got, and it wouldn't quit raining. It's spitting now, but the water's gone. So yeah, but
Receding.
yeah, it's receding now. And yeah, we energetically, it's been pretty all over the place.
Well, hopefully, if you are one of the sorry victims of spontaneous human combustion, hopefully it happens in your front yard when there is water halfway to your front door.
That would be convenient at that point, or if you have a pool or something like that. But I came to find out that it's actually a mix of things where there's like you've heard of like dew weaponry and things of that nature, where it's a
Uh-huh.
focused microwave beam. I've heard of things like that, but it's also aliens conducting experiments, and you have dimensional and timeline energetic frequency stuff going on. It's mainly frequency that's doing it, and also chemical reactions in the body that make it so it burns and breaks down.
Yeah, biological reactions
Yeah, yeah, and
that aren't
yeah,
scientifically proven yet.
yeah. Just like let's say if you mix like epoxy resin together, what's the first thing that happens when you mix the two parts? It starts to heat up. So it's like two things coming together to make it so it builds that
Mm.
heat up. Or grass, if you pile it on top of each other, the rot that's in the center makes a heat in the center. So there's something like that kind of reaction going on, from what I understand.
Hmm. And some of the common out. Oh, the dogs are going nuts. About right at the start of the show, my dog just came in and says, "I'm coming in," and opened the door. Uh, where were we now? Sorry. Excuse
Yeah,
the puppies.
yeah, you were just getting ready to talk about more about it. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like I said, short-term memory loss, sorry. The commonalities between it. So many of these people supposedly have been drinkers that have suffered from this. There's been cigarettes and fireplaces. All right. Well, those three things right there automatically, the normal part of a person's brain will normally say like, okay, they dumped alcohol on them and like maybe they're a smoker and an ember dropped and the alcohol caught on fire. But then that would probably just burn their clothes. It wouldn't get it hot enough to, you to half of these bodies return to ash. Okay. And in order to cremate a body, that is high temperatures, concentrated temperatures for like an hour or two.
It takes
And
crematorium like 6 or 8 hours to get that effect. Yeah.
these people, I watched a program with I forget the band right now, but it was some guy that had a program over in England, and he's one of the lead singers of a band. He did a SHC special, and he went through all these different, elaborate, kind of like Mythbusters,
Hmm.
and set up these different experiments. And and he tried them all out. He soaked a pig corpse in alcohol for 24 hours and tried dumping alcohol on it, lighting it, just didn't do nothing. So, that kind of rules out the alcohol, even if you biologically process the alcohol.
Hmm.
I don't think that would cause enough. But then you have the cigarettes, and I've known people that have fallen asleep with a cigarette in their mouth and they burn holes in their clothes and about set the house on fire and blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah. So that is one thing, but that's an accidental cigarette fire, that can be determined, but what separates, then there's one more, the fireplace. And a lot of people think, if you've had a fireplace, you sit around it, snap, crackle, pop of the fire, ember pops out, lands on you when you're sleeping in a chair or something.
Hmm.
And then there you smolder away. But even then, you think that an ember of the pain, would sear you awake and you could put it out or something. And the SHC supposedly is originating from inside of the body out. You're kind of exploding from the inside out, like you
Some
swallow a
people think
bomb.
like a fart, like South Park did that time, where people.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Oh, excuse my ass of fire. Asses of fire. But
Well, the
yeah,
show you're wanting to, that you're thinking of, I'm thinking is Brainiac. That's the one you need.
yeah.
Uh, um,
Goofballs.
mhm.
Uh, I uh there's been many portrayals too of SHC in cartoons and all that throughout history. I've seen it, in random shows when I was growing up. I remember seeing people just randomly and they're up in flames. And then, obviously, I don't know if it was Unsolved Mysteries. There was some program that I seen as a kid that talked about a spontaneous human combustion epidemic that was supposedly happen over in like Italy or somewheres like that. Supposedly
Mhm.
people's things were just catching on fire and people were spontaneously combusting and there was no rhyme or reason or anything. It's just a mystery. There's been a couple of reported incidences. Most of these people were found later on. They weren't answering letters, they weren't answering phone calls. They go get a check and they're found with like half their body burned,
Mhm.
sitting in one spot, and none of the rest of the house is on fire. But there's been a few instances to where there has been crowds to where there's a woman that was, woman or guy, I forget, that was leaving a dance, and they supposedly started like belching fire. And there was another example of one in England where a guy was found, and it appeared as if his cavity was ripped open in his belly, and it was like a propane torch of flames emitting out of his stomach.
It's like the gas
That's
fire at that point.
yeah. And that was reported by the fire investigator who that was a relatively modern era case in the 1980s.
Hmm.
And he claims it 100% true. They had photos of the body and everything. It was just absolutely eerie. And I guess it's like that fear of like swimming in dark water. Am I going to get attacked by a shark? You could just be walking around sometime like a and spontaneously human combustion. It'll be over.
Yeah. It's
That's what I was like in the beginning.
like,
Gone.
like in the like that scene in South Park where the guy goes, "I'm gonna hold in my farts forever," and they just burst.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was funny. Kenny, you killed Kenny.
Uh,
Wait, Kenny killed Kenny.
That's fun. Yeah, that was funny. Because I know South Park's a disclosure show, so there's some like one little kernel of truth to that, to where like yes, the methane can ignite kind of deal, or chemicals can combine to heat up to do that. There's also with blood pressure issues. I had that up until recently, where I felt like I was burning from the inside out, and my mother kept joking, "You're spontaneously human combusting, but slowly."
Yeah,
But it's like that pressure built up, and I finally had to take meds for that, and I felt the heat just taper off. But it was like, as I was always burning all the time, and it was like I was using hibiscus tea to take it down, all the herbal stuff. I'm like, okay, this is obviously severe enough where I have to look at it. But at the same time, I felt like I was being compacted, like there was chemicals inside me just like boiling. I'm thinking, yeah, this is a joke, but my mother was joking. We at the same time, it's like, I wonder if there's a kernel of truth to that,
yeah.
burning on the inside, and then yeah, when the heat tapered off, I noticed like I felt like I was shrinking. It was weird. Like the blood vessels kind of less constricted, and then now you feel like you're smaller. It's weird. It's before I
Hmm.
felt like I was big and like ready to like burn and burst into flames, kind of thing. And there's something to the thing with the chemical reaction. There's something to that part of it because
If there is something, I know this is kind of jokey, but I'm just gonna put my $5 on for a bet. If it's a food that causes spontaneous human combustion, I'm either gonna say that it would be spicy Taco Bell sauce, or energy drinks, since everybody's addicted to them.
right? Or you're gonna find out one of these that's a joke, but you're gonna find out one of these days people are consuming like an experimental chemical that's making the body react and go. You're gonna find that
Hmm.
out one of these days.
Red Bull, it makes you spontaneously human combust.
But yeah, there is something to also the frequencies that are being beamed at people. Like say with a microwave weapon, what do microwaves do? You know,
Yeah, he did that experiment too. Then there's things like ball lightning that has been attributed to it,
mhm.
and yeah, electrical sparks have been a supposed theory. Like somebody that might be wearing like a fluffy jacket, and there's like a little electrical spark that lights up the. But even then, you think it'd only be, like skin burns. You don't think they'd actually like turn to ash from the inside out and like emit
Mm,
flames like a fucking dragon,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I said in a
There's
few cases. These people literally look like they're like breath of a dragon.
like I found out with like dragon lore where they're actually there's a chemical inside where they're igniting it and their skin doesn't actually burn. There was also a character on the show Farscape years ago that there's a race on there called a Chechen where they would be filled with gas like a prairie dog would, and blow up if anybody shot them with one of their laser weapons, or one of their space weapons. And the same thing with a prairie dog. People used to do this cruel shit years ago where they'd shoot a prairie dog and they'd explode because of the gases build up. But that's different than this. That's a gas building up to explode, like GI type of thing.
Hmm.
This is more like this, almost like there's this chemical and energetic combination that's going on.
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
with that. And from what I understand, there's some alien experiments I found out where some people that were abductees actually, it's not all of them, obviously. There's thousands of people that are abductees, but it's a more specific type of thing going on, or a specific group experiment, or even governments doing experiments with the foods with chemicals, all this other stuff.
No, they don't do that.
No, they don't do anything like that at all.
Uh-uh.
Perfectly pure and innocent in this. Yeah. So, but
They're
back
always going to be there for you.
yeah, like with the earliest cases though, that's the ones that are baffling because they're earlier. Now I know for a fact there are some cultist groups out there that have higher tech. Like they have like a more space age level tech because it was some aliens that started those groups to begin with. So back a long time ago. So they just kept the hand me down tech. Like some cultists will have certain capabilities. With that, like there's an AI algorithm out there we nicknamed the Mouth. That's the one that puts all those creepy thoughts in people's heads all the time. And I found out it's a cultist group that actually created it, and that was
Mm.
back in Aleister Crowley's time frame. So I came to find that out where it's just high level technology. It
Hmm.
appears like magic. So if you apply that kind of knowledge, not our base knowledge, like how we understand things now, if you apply some of these other things in the periphery to it, it kind of makes sense. Like it's an attack,
Hmm.
it's a targeting, it's an experiment. If you keep applying that to it, even on some of the simplest levels with chemicals and foods, it could be one in a million or one in every several million that it happens to with a certain chemical, but then you have narcissistic evil assholes out there that go, oh, that's just collateral damage for this experiment we're running. That's just oh, what's a few people that spontaneously combust.
Hmm.
That's the mentality you're up against, like that. So it's like a Nazi like mentality. If people apply these things over here in the periphery to this, it kind of makes sense. Otherwise, there's no context for it. So then it's a mystery. That's how you get these mysteries because there's no context unless you apply some of these other things to it. It's all technically inclusive of itself. All of these subjects are kind of one gigantic tapestry. So yeah, that's kind of what I was able to figure out, that it was where it was kind of in that general area of like a targeting or experiment going on.
I've always kind of agreed with that a little bit too.
Mhm.
Kind of that combo theory of could be something else doing it, or it's some biological process that we can't explain that's
Mixing
interacting
of
with.
DNAs, like if people are a hybrid
Yeah,
or something like that, where they
yeah.
mesh, and yeah, I can see that being the case too. Where there are some DNAs, like if you have like a certain ET DNA and human DNA, there's some traits that even within our own genomes, like if you have the say Rh negative factor, for instance, it's actually clashing with your own biology. That means it comes from a hybrid source, not necessarily just ours. So the
Hmm.
same goes with certain, not necessarily other blood types, but there's certain cells in our bodies that will attack other regular human cells. Or like if you have an immunodisease where your own immune system is like eating itself or something like that. These things are where I feel were all like either from experiment or from like hybridization, like somebody's tried to force hybrid other ET genes onto the current human template, even though we're a mutt race from the galaxy where we have a bunch of hybridization anyway. It's where somebody else is trying to add too much of one thing and the two DNAs are clashing. It's kind of like in Star Trek where Spock always says his human and Vulcan side are kind of at war with each other mentally. Uh, that's kind of around the lines I'm talking about, where there's like a just something that doesn't quite fit, and it just kind of just self-destructs at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's another area I've looked into as well for this. And they're not all wrong, but the one that keeps centering around is more experiment, is the one that keeps kind of circling in red ink around it, is that. But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I found, let's see, the original person I kind of, I lost my thing here. Okay. The original person that these things started from was a Mary Reeser was her name, from St. Pete's, Florida. And she died in July 2nd, 1951, of spontaneous human combustion. Then she's the one that really, the one that they started centering around
Mm-hmm.
all of this
Modern era,
modern era.
the
Yeah.
UFO of SHC, or
Hmm.
the Roswell UFO of SHC.
And the thing of it is, though, in the 1950s, I mean, of course, with the 1947, of course, you have the Roswell incident, but then that's when I found out that was actually the Germans actually, when the aliens gave them their anti-gravitic technology, they were trying to leave the planet multiple times. It was one of their craft that shredded over the
Nazi Bell, the Nazi Bell.
Yeah, it's a Nazi Velcraft is essentially what it is, and they were able to duplicate that after they perfected it, but they couldn't perfect getting past the firmament or the barrier around the Earth, the frequency barrier. That's why it shredded this. With this, though, in the 1950s, this starts to fit because it says she died in 51. And this starts to fit with like the UFO age really kicking off in that time frame. You start to go through the 50s, that's Eisenhower era eventually, then you have the Valiant Thor, starting with the Pentagon material in there. Then you have the eventually the eventually 50s and 60s. You have the Derenberger, Lonulus, visitors from Lonulus material. Then you have in that time frame. This is when all of this is starting to kick off. So and then you start the people talking about UFOs, flying saucers. All this is when it's all really starting to kick off. Is in that era. I found out there was a timeline split like you have with Fallout. Like if everybody's played that game series where there's literally like a mirror universe timeline where it's like the 50s and nuclear age. This is when the nuclear age were kicking off and where we're sitting now. And it all seems to fit within the starting of the atomic era, where you have a lot of this being talked about and a lot of this circulating. Even though spontaneous human combustion happened long before that, this is when it's really started to get like a big red ink circle around it. Is in that era. And there was another guy in our modern time here. His name was Michael Faherty, and he died in I believe it was December 22nd, 2010. And this was let me see here. Got Michael here. Okay, that was Mary. Okay, here we are. Yeah, it was in 2010, and yeah, him and that Mary Hardy Reeser are like two of the bigger cases that they seem to focus on. And let's see, Galloway. Let's see. Okay, yeah, they don't even say the hometown. Oh, it's Galloway. It's in Ireland. He died in Ireland. So that was in 2010, and it still continues to build. There's even some in and even within this decade bracket that have taken place in 2020 on. There were even cases during the COVID time that I've noticed that we're actually starting to increase in the spontaneous human combustion. Again, one of the biggest experiments that we've met in our modern day, which was COVID-19, along with government social experiments and all that. You started to see the other one, a good old-fashioned one from the old days, spontaneous human combustion, started to come up too. This told me there was more energy involved because they were activating a nanovirus in people via our 5G tech. What also sparked, again, like what I said from frequency, spontaneous human combustion. So you kind of saw some of them. The other one was kind of ghosting the other for a little while. Not nearly as much in the spontaneous human combustion, but you noticed it kind of went hand in hand with frequency changes and also with viral, new virus or vaccine that was being introduced. So you noticed that the other one was kind of ghosting in the background a little bit. Not as much as what has been reported. Obviously, there's probably a ton that haven't, but I noticed hand in hand, it was kind of like the whole Sentry and the Void concept, where you have the Sentry and then you have the Void, the superhero, where it's like you get the other end of the yin yang. It's kind of along those concepts where they kind of almost see it's the frequency that seems to bring in the other. And I've noticed that pattern that the spontaneous human combustion cases actually started to rise in 2020, especially with all the fear that people were pumping out during that time frame, everything. It started to taper off, but it's still continued even to this day. This is still going on. You don't hear people reporting it as much, but I can guarantee you they're still going. Depending on it, because the frequencies, there's also psionic dampening going on. People may notice there's a lot of stupid people around lately. So that's a dumbing effect that's happening both chemically and psionically. And what do you get when you compact, like both chemically and frequency? It's like pushing something down that's ready to erupt. It's going to go boom. Yeah, those are the patterns I've noticed lately.
Yeah.
Even up to this year, there's been reports of it. So even to the beginning of this year, it's still going. It scared the crap out of some people too. People like in South Park were afraid they were going to combust. So I would go back to that because Trey Parker seemed to integrate a little bit of factual,
like always.
Yeah, from political to satirical to galactic. Reported to like when they reported Earth was a reality show, that they were a mix of races here from other planets and everything. That's something that the disclosure groups call the Great Seeding. So from millions of years ago. So they obviously knew something about some of that information and integrated it. So, but that's why I give credit to them, because they're considered to be one of the disclosure series, like with the Simpsons or like with SpongeBob even. So yeah. There's just been like SpongeBob advertised the dumbing effect, where you see plankton is actually making a chemical that's making everybody dumb, and he gets hit with it, he becomes dumb. And then it rains down over the crowd like a chemtrail or a chem cloud, makes everybody stupid. And then you see at the end, Sally Squirrel is having to re-educate people in the re-education system, the school system, because that was basically telling people, hey, everybody was made stupid so they could be re-educated. So I'm thinking in cases such as spontaneous human combustion, they're trying to drift people away from these topics. They're trying to drift. Intelligent wise, they're trying to get people not to look in these places, and so they could keep running these experiments in the background. That's why people have to be very, very observant.
Running everything on, in the shadows.
Yeah, they're running it in the shadows. That's why I said you need context for this. The reason it's a mystery is because there's no context.
Hey,
No.
I disagree with your word context. There's no scientific evidence.
Trust the science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I've said, always science lies. I can't say that for everything because I'm not a scientist,
Yeah.
but I know manipulation when I see it.
Oh, it's manipulation, yeah, because the manipulation's the context. So that's what I was trying to say.
Exactly. And if you
So
don't believe 2 + 2 = 5, then you're a bigot.
yeah, and if you believe there's more than two genders,
Yeah.
if you don't believe there's more than two genders, you're a bigot. So yeah.
I identify as an octopus. Is there any octopus-friendly restrooms here? No, there isn't. Well, then you're going to be hearing from my lawyer
Uh,
because I need to drain my tentacle.
Now, I found out with that topic, there are no ETs that are actually in that category, except for ones that evolved that way naturally.
Mm.
So humans are there's gay, bisexual, and straight, but
And with about 1,000 other things that I don't even know what.
yeah, exactly. You don't know what's real and what isn't anymore. But I know there's some things I know are manipulation that, and then you have the natural ones which are gay, straight, and bi. And it's like it's weird that way.
What about the ones that identify as objects? Like I always felt like I was a chair. So like,
Uh,
yeah, like I'd be a good
Now, is
office
there a
chair.
dimensional thing going on where people are getting a bleed through from somewhere, like a different version of themselves in the multiverse? I have seen that absolutely, but now there's
Well, hey, and speaking of this, I
yeah,
just had an epiphany.
yeah.
Correlating spontaneous human combustion to spontaneous combustion.
Mm,
There's rags that obviously, like, for me, I'm in the cleaning business. So,
hmm
like if you're washing rags with different chemicals and, you wash them out, there could be a chemical reaction and all these rags catch on fire.
hmm
So, a similar thing to a human body, like we've been saying, a chemical reaction could very well cause a spontaneous combustion of sorts.
Yeah.
So when objects really do spontaneous combust on occasion, now there's usually a propellant source, like a can of gas sitting out in the sun in a hot day or something like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But it can happen naturally.
It's still with even the gasoline with a heat source, it's still combusting. So you have also like the Thames years ago in England. All of a sudden, it spontaneously combusted because there were so many pollutants in it. It was just a river of poo at that point and chemicals. So it just all of a sudden burned naturally. Nature burned it all off, and it became clean again. It was like a couple centuries worth of just crap that was in it and it burned it off. It was a chemical reaction where the water itself burned. So you can usually tell it's like with chemtrails. People come across snow that will burn. And that's because it's the same thing like with the Thames. It was just a bunch of chemicals from that have accumulated, and then poof, they had to set it on fire, mind you, but there's still a combustible reaction there. And that's what I see with I've seen people's houses spontaneously combusting. And I also attribute that to some are being targeted with microwave weapons and psionic weaponry and stuff like that. But there's also entities that have done it that introduce their energies to it, like fire, jinn, demons, things of this nature, and then made them combust too. And from a human perspective, that house is burning for no reason. So I've actually seen that energy. There's a dimensional version of a house that burns too. So I've seen that to where it copy and pastes onto our world. I see it as we're getting the copy and paste onto us, and it's actually starting that chemical reaction. Like, say, if you have a frequency that a sound wave that you are blasting at like some sand. They tried this years ago, where you hit a certain frequency and it would form a pattern. Imagine if somebody hit you with a frequency wave and a microwave wave that was making your body enter a different configuration on the inside.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
And say if you had another set of
Kind of like that Mel's hole again.
yeah,
They
Bell's
took
Hall
that
again.
goat down into the cage and it
Yeah,
came
and it
on.
came up with that weird ass thing. Yeah. And what happens is you're telling that person's body by a V2K voice to skull, whatever you want to call this, to enter a particular configuration. And when you do that, you're basically saying, okay, you could tell the cells to ignite. Poof.
Now, what about like those dew weapons?
Yeah, that's it is a direct energy weapon. That would be essentially the same. That's what started
The
the
wildfires.
wildfires. Yep. And in Los Angeles,
There's
when
people reporting that, hey, we seen a laser start the fire.
yeah, and that's true. What happens is many years ago, but in Washington State or Oregon, I can't remember which one. Some people reported back to us. We told them to look for the ones we called the cabal or military fire starters, where they would start a fire with matches and gasoline, and then the energy weapon would take it and paint it all over the landscape like it was a Photoshop brush or something. And that's what happened in Australia, where it was around the edge of Australia prior to COVID. People have forgotten about that because of COVID, but the one, this was back in 2017 or 18-ish when this happened, where some people got back to us and caught these guys that were military that were out there trying to start fires. And they stopped them. They said, "Thank you for notifying us," but at the same time, we didn't actually question as to how they stopped them. But they just said they did. And we told people to look for these people on the ground, scoping out and surveying areas. It turns out in the LA fires, there was something like that too, where there was just somebody scoping it out. But they perfected the technology. Lahaina in Hawaii, same thing, where the whole painting of the roof blue thing that they did, they were telling the AI from the DO weapon, don't hit that particular roof. That's usually, you can tell where the elitists lived, is where it's like the goat's blood thing back.
And to correlate that with building spontaneously combustion with DO weapons, I heard of a kind of, I guess you could call it a conspiracy of how that roofs in China are being painted blue or something to not get hit by these things. I heard some article about that years back about like roofs were being painted blue to like avoid those type of weapons.
So yeah, what that is, it's a concept called chromo subsampling, and what that is, that's what green screens and everything are about. And you can literally tell the AI to choose any color to avoid. It could be purple, red, green, yellow, blue, it doesn't matter. And as long as you say don't hit that color, then
algorithmically program not to hit it.
Yeah, brought not to hit it. They could easily switch it to green, easily switch it to red. At any time they could switch it, and then China's screwed at that point, so if they use all blue. And people forget that. They think, oh, it's just a talisman. You think blue's going to protect you from AI? No, it's the fact that the AI has been programmed not to hit it. And yeah, you could easily tell it, instruct it a different way, like with the beam hitting the body. They could try to make your cells take any configuration, because humans have a natural ability of almost like a shape-shifting ability called molecular cellular solid. That's the thing, like if you get your arm amputated or leg or foot amputated or hand amputated or something, you still feel like you have
phantom pain or a phantom limb.
Yeah, it's a natural ability, but humans haven't gotten far enough along to pop out a new hand or arm yet. But it's still the energy frequency you have of that.
Like a lizard that pops its tail off and regrows its tail.
Yeah, or a foot or something like that. And they prove that with a leaf, where if you cut, you take a picture of a leaf, like an ultraviolet or a picture of it, then you cut a piece of the leaf off, you still see a pattern of the living energy. That's what that is, and with knowing that, you can they can try to program the human body to take whatever configuration. Spontaneous human combustion, I believe, is part of that paradigm, pretty much. So, yeah.
Well, let me dive on in. I want to read one little article to kind of sum a few cases up to, along with you. Let me go here. Wrong tab. I don't care about Temu, but I do care about spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, Temu,
Is spontaneous human combustion real? Can we really burst into flames, or is this just another myth? If you're familiar with the work of Charles Dickens, in particular in his 1853 novel Bleak House, you may also be aware of a strange phenomenon termed spontaneous human combustion. I've never read that book, but I might have to. And arguably the most famous literary case of this curiosity, Dickens details the grisly demise of junk merchant Mr. Crook, who meets a fiery end leaving behind just a pile of ash and a dark, greasy coating on the walls and ceiling. And that was the other thing we didn't talk about. In these cases of supposed SHC combustion, there is a fat, oily substance that coats the room. And supposedly it's the human body fat that burns off and coats the room.
Oh, yes.
Kind of similar to how cigarette tar covers a room. However, the concept isn't solely consigned to Dickens' imagination. or even to Victorian literature. In fact, in the last 400 years, there have been a few hundred reports of humans spontaneously bursting into flames, impromptu, which has come to be referred to as spontaneous human combustion, or SHC. Alleged cases are a source of curiosity and speculation. The historic lack of solid evidence, scientific explanation, has created a breeding ground of unfounded theories that have generated more questions than they've answered. The most obvious of these is it actually real? Well, we all know what spontaneously human combustion is, but largely the victims fit a similar profile of being elderly, overweight, socially isolated, and female, and having consumed a large amount of alcohol. And then, like we stated earlier, cigarettes and fire stoves were the other thing that they kind of had in common. Uh, so there's a little supposed, if you're looking at your phone right now or wherever you're listening, there's a supposed picture of him cleaning up a body that's turned to ash. And that's a Mary Reeser case that you were talking about, that Chris was talking about. Mary Reeser died mysteriously in 51, leaving behind a pile of ash, and that's her body. Despite skepticism surrounding its existence, it continues to be accepted in meteorological settings, as it's still listed as a legitimate cause of death. For example, in 2011, it was reported that a coroner ruled the death of a 76-year-old man in Galloway, Ireland, as a result of SHC. All of the mysteries shrouding the phenomenon has led to some pretty wacky theories from its advocates, and they have hypothesized everything from poltergeist to pyrotrons to try and explain it. So, a little history in the spontaneous combustion. Accounts date back to the 17th century, with a large number documented in the 19th century and just a handful in the last 100 years. The first known case was described in 1641 by a Danish doctor and mathematician who recounted the untimely death of an Italian knight in the 15th century. Research biologist Brian J. Ford wrote for New Scientist in 2012, the knight reportedly drank wine one night before mysteriously bursting into flames. So there's another alcohol account. Several other accounts followed, including those involving alcohol, leading to the Victorian theory that SHC was retribution for excessive alcohol consumption. Dickens himself fanned the flames of this myth, writing Crook as an alcoholic. In 1851, Justice von Liebig, one of the principal founders of the organic chemistry, conducted a series of experiments finding that anatomical specimens stored in 70% ethanol do not burn, and nor do rats injected with ethanol, thus refuting the alcohol as the sole cause of the SHC idea. Without the booze to blame, fingers have been pointed all over the place, including at intestinal gases, bioelectricity, overactive mitochondria, and even poltergeist, or as we stated, dew weapons. However, none of these theories hold much scientific weight. A modern explanation? So what then? If not alcohol, ghosts could explain this phenomenon. The most likely explanation is the Wick effect. Roger Bayard, a professor of pathology at the University of Adelaide, told IFL Science. Reclusive alcoholics who are overweight and wrapped in blankets who may spill some of their spirits they are drinking and then drop a lighted cigarette, like we said in the beginning. To me, that's like a lot, and I don't think it'd burn from the inside out. Essentially, the Wick effect requires an external source of ignition that causes body fat to melt. Following a tear in the skin, the fat gets soaked up by the victim's clothes, which act like a wick of a candle and burn for an extended period of time at a relatively low temperature. It has been shown that a cloth wick and melted human fat can continue to burn at temperatures as low as 24 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Proof that Bayard wrote in 2016, this is proposed an explanation for the limitation of the size of the fire and the preservation of the adjacent body parts and clothing. The whole process could be exacerbated by alcohol spilling onto clothes, especially if the deceased had been smoking, Bayard continued. The Wick effect, brought on by an overlooked external source of ignition, is currently the prevalent scientific explanation for purported cases of SHC, which give us an answer to our initial question. Is spontaneous human combustion in humans real? There is no doubt that SHC is a myth, but how does it explain all these cases that we've talked about today? There's too many weird cases, in my opinion, for this not to be a real thing. So that kind of gives you a historical account of where it kind of became in literature, and then everything followed. Was he talking about a real account that he just fictionally wrote about, and then other stuff happened? I think so. And then here we are living in this modern era, like we talked about. There could be several reasonings behind SHC.
And I'm thinking that the alcohol thing might be the cover story because it may be that because some of these groups that do this will add like a cover story in there. So if, say, somebody like Dickens, for instance, noticed somebody that happened to was an alcoholic, let's just say, and he was observing this, this would be a bit of misinformation that was added on top of this. Could it have added to a chemical reaction? It did it absolutely sometimes. It would depends on what liquor you're talking about. Could that be added? Yeah. Do I think it's the only thing? No. With that, and also, like I said, there were these different groups that used tech in the past. That's where you get the whole ancient alien thing from. So yeah, this with all that, without that context, people are left with. Well, of course, it's manipulation, but people are left with of these mysteries like that. I feel Dickens when he based it on a real account, nonetheless. And with Crook, I feel that he based that off of somebody that actually had that happen, and because he drew his literary works from actual things that he saw in his lifetime. And like if you, I believe you watched the movie, I believe it was The Man That Invented Christmas, I believe, and it was about Dickens. It showed he got his sources for Scrooge and all that from a lot of his experiences in life. So same with Tolkien, but Tolkien channeled some of his, from like the old Elfish Tuatha De Danann time frame. But then he got like the Battle of Helm's Deep was like the Battle of the Somme in World War I. So he was a soldier too. So. Like it was a hopeless scenario. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Some people channel, and then some people get it from their own human life experience. So, or a little of both. And Tolkien, it was a little of both. That would probably be a fascinating show to do one on Tolkien sometime, but Lord of the Rings material. But with Dickens, I can definitely feel intuitively that he witnessed something that he used, like Peter Benchley when he wrote Jaws, for instance. He saw there were some shark attacks up by Martha's Vineyard, and he's like, okay, I can make a fictional town and have a killer shark killing people off the coast, there. It's like.
Then I'll never forget there was an extra in Jaws too that supposedly was a victim of a serial murderer. Remember hearing about that?
Yeah, I heard about that too. It's some weird crap came out of that production, but but that's the point I'm making. Like they'll pick some things and then run with it, and that's why people are afraid to go back in the water after a while. And also, I'm thinking it's like with Orson Welles and the War of the Worlds production, where people just kind of went stupid. And I think somebody was seeing if they could get people to have mass hysteria. And there was also other beings at the time that wanted to test to see where humans' flinch test was when it came to aliens. Orson Welles, I think, thought he did that by himself, but I think there was other factors involved there. But it's the same with spontaneous human combustion. I think somebody's fanned the flames a little bit to get people a little more scared. Also, people are starting to co-create some more cases because of the creative ability. So somebody like with COVID was fanning the flames with this, and upping the ante a little bit. That probably needed more of that to take place. So just like with, I found out with different foods, different chemicals, there are ET races that are actually mining the different chemical reactions. How do we know that's not happening with spontaneous human combustion, that there's like not a mining process going on somewhere? Like with Loosh, with the reptilians, they're mining fear and pain energy. Demons are doing that too. So I think this falls under that category as well. Experimenting, manipulation. So I believe there's a multitude of angles surrounding this, but that's kind of the feeling I got with Dickens, was like he was picking up on, or he was seeing a real thing.
I agree.
Yeah, completely.
I think it's a pretty interesting topic nonetheless. And who knows? Maybe in the next year we'll have a case on the news that steals the attention of the news.
Yeah, I have a feeling that, now that we've said it, somebody's going to do it. Usually I notice if we say something that sometimes this sparks curiosity of somewhere, and then you'll have some newscaster talking about. I believe there's cases going on that aren't being reported. This may spark somebody to actually start, no pun intended, to actually report this.
Well, I feel like they've been too frequent in history for them not to continue to happen at some point.
Yeah, I feel it's still continuing to go on, because you know how many people die worldwide all the time, with people that are passing away, even right now. So add spontaneous human combustion into that.
There's probably been like 5,000 people that have died since we started the episode.
Yeah, no, yeah. If you count the totality of the globe here and the population of the globe, yeah, there's probably like 5, 6 thousand people that have passed from that right now, and that it hasn't been reported. It's just kind of quietly being kind of swept under the rug a little bit. So I'm thinking even with the cases that were reported, those are the ones that just happen to be caught or happen to be seen. Or somebody out there was trying to make sure that it was seen by somebody outside of like whatever secret things going on. Sometimes good forces will shuffle authorities or somebody that can see it towards it. Spirit will do this too, so saying, "Hey, look at this for a minute." There might be a good person in the background saying, "Hey, look at this a minute." There's something going on you're unaware of, kind of thing. That has to do with like mysterious scars people get, like in alien abductions. There's good beings out there trying to say, hey, there's something going on. You were taken. So there is good out there that tries to push people towards this information a lot of times. Some of it's disinformation that somebody else is pushing towards, but sometimes it's somebody good saying, please take a second look at this. So, and then they can't really make contact completely, but they're wanting to push people towards a certain subject. So, and then the bad guys come in and try to fan the flames of fear surrounding it and all that other stuff. But when they notice it's out there, the other yin, the yin to the yang or the yang to the yin pop up. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add, another article or anything. If you have anything,
We pretty much well covered everything up that I thought that we've talked about today. Let me look real quick. I just wanted to dive into one more case that I was talking about. We talked about a few of them here, but uh, there's one here, the woman who roared like a dragon. The previous suspected case of SHC came almost 3 years before Mr. Fothery's death, when a blue flame apparently emitted from Janine Saffin, 61, as she sat with her family. Her brother-in-law, Don Carroll, said that the flame shot from Miss Saffin's stomach as she sat at her kitchen table in Edmonton, North London. She was roaring like a dragon. He said the kitchen wasn't damaged, but her cardigan melted. The inquest never sorted it out, but I know what I saw. And there was one that was a ballroom that I seen. All right, here. In a highly dramatic tale, the curious incident of a woman in the ballroom, which mirrors claims of blue flames in the SHC, but diverts from recurring theme of victims dying in their living rooms. Maybelle Andrews was reportedly taken over by flame in 1938. Her fiance and fellow partygoers were reportedly shocked when a flame erupted from her as she stood at the top of a staircase. So there was a few of them that had been supposedly, witnessed by other partygoers. So most of the time, a lot of the times, like we stated, it's somebody that happens to them with nobody else around that are discovered later. But there's a few of them that have been seen by other people that are like, what in the hell happened here? So it'll probably remain a mystery. The only thing that I can say is if it's not being done by other people, if it's a natural phenomenon that needs to be measured by science, almost somebody dying in a hospital bed is going to have to spontaneously combust in front of the doctors, and they're going to have to run the test automatically while the body's still fresh.
Yeah, they're going to have to have their instruments right there. It's going to have to happen that way.
While they're in the room, and they're going to have
burning,
to
yeah, you're going to need the eggheads in the room when it happens.
Basically. Yeah.
Then they're going to have to be able to replicate. If they find out the origin, they're going to have to replicate it again. Yeah. To prove it. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunately how it would have to happen to put it on the actual books, and then people are going to freak out. This is a real thing. Oh my God! So
yeah, living in fear.
10
years from now, are you worried about spontaneous human combustion? Take Roselle Polly. Roselle Polly will help you from.
Yeah.
However, it may cause internal burning. Wait, it's supposed to help me from busting, but I'm happy I'm taking the pill.
And you may get the trade-off of anal leakage afterwards.
Yeah, exactly what I wanted to suffer from this side effect of this medication. I won't catch on flames, but I may have a leaky stool syndrome here going on.
Or you bleed continuously from the eyes forever.
Yeah, vampire crying may be a result in this medication. Tears of blood.
tears of blood, like in True Blood, when they would cry, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Damn good
it's
show.
some trade-off like that. You watch, if it were made public and proven, you would see the pill commercials
And
constantly.
you know, in a way, it's not spontaneous human combustion, but I can kind of correlate it to that. Whenever those vampires get stabbed in the heart, they just blow up into like a bloody mess.
But they just
Yeah, it's like that stake through the heart is kind of like the internal bomb whenever somebody goes up in flames there.
uh-huh. Yeah, it's like essentially like a gas just going, you know, like
Yeah.
uh,
Whoosh.
yeah. In some cases, now other accounts of vampires would be just stunning them with the stake, and it's fire and cutting the head off that kills them. But in the True Blood version, it's just this explosion of like meat that is
Mm-hmm.
like the South Park version of it going, blah, you know. So,
Yeah.
which I always found that funny. They added the whole slapstick portion in there a little bit, serious slapstick in there a little bit with that.
Mhm.
But
I'm
yeah,
gonna have to go back and watch that episode after we record this of South Park here.
I'm gonna have to go look at that.
Wow.
But yeah, I think we're at the part of the show we can do the channel, and then
Perfect.
all right. So all right,
Get some good information here.
okay. Isaac, I would assume it's you, but if it's but if it's somebody else is around that's truly benevolent, not collecting agendas, please come forward. Okay, Isaac. Okay, of course. Okay, of course you'd want to talk about this subject. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Some interference. Okay. All right. Got a little bit of interference. It's not quite that bad this morning, actually,
Good.
to tell you the truth. So it's a little bit. It's the time of year approaching the Samhain time frame.
Yeah.
It's expected this time of year, actually, a little bit.
No shit.
Kind of a brain scrambler a little bit. Even the bad guys get scrambled a little bit this time of year. So there's so much activity. It's so much paranormal activity. So okay, Isaac, you can come in anytime. Okay. Yes, he's actually correct. And if you also look at not just with the alien side of this, if you look at, as he said, the frequency side of this, sometimes they will try to coincide these types of experiments with PowerPoints of the time of year. One of them was in December, you see. So, and another one, oh, well, of course, was in July. But if you're hitting certain PowerPoints and focal type points, even cross quarters in some little focal area, or if there's an Earth energy that happens to be coinciding, this will cause some of it, but the rest of what you guys mentioned was true chemical as well as frequency psionic. This is the biggest one, and somebody running an experiment. And here's one angle that you had not considered in the alien abduction area. What if somebody was, say, if there was an operative somewhere? Or some ET that was here. And if you wanted to actually leave your human life and go back to that, incarnated or not, sometimes they're not, sometimes they are. What if you wanted to go back to this? What if your own people were reclaiming you at that point? This has actually happened where there's an incarnated, like ET, they're running a mission down here as an unbeknownst human, and then sometimes this happens. Beam me up, Scotty, sort of. Or they're reclaiming the soul. Otherwise, it's the human, well, not the human, but the physical person wanting to go home too. ET phone home. In this case, it leaves a pile of ash behind. So you'll notice in some grave instances as well, unbeknownst to some people, in instances where there was an ET body, they will open up the coffin. Either nothing's there, or there's a pile of ashes left behind. Sometimes there is, as he said, the clash between two DNAs, but the main cause right now in your modern era is experimentation and manipulation with frequencies and with chemicals, as you've heard. Your 5G integrated into this with your COVID fiasco, but of course they upped the game in that area and they wanted to get people distracted over here. Then they got to diddle around over here. But with some of these cases where somebody's, say, hair is lighting on fire or something like that, they're getting some waves on top, hence why he's wearing this hat with the silver lined cloth. If you really want to stop a lot of these frequencies, have like some orgone type pieces and or you wrap the interior of your home in the EMF reflective cloth. This will actually start to stop some of these instances. And some of these were cultist, sacrificial type things in the past. That's what's going on with this. But in the modern era, you're not seeing a new phenomenon. And yes, your Charles Dickens did indeed witness one of these things. He was so shocked and so amazed at the same time. He integrated it into his literary work. So, and you'll start to see it falling into legend. If you look also, say, even in your mythological bases, like your Greek, Norse, any of them, you'll start to actually see instances where they think it's kind of almost like an ascension going on, or something like the gods smote somebody or something like this, or God in biblical times smote somebody. You'll start to hear even in biblical stories some things of these things happening because this is what's going on. So this is actually quite old because a lot of these War of the different ET hedge betters has been around for ages and ages. So, do you have questions for me?
Yeah, that's a pretty good opening statement there. You covered up a few of the questions that I had. But if these, if it is a weapon that's doing it, we've obviously played games. I think it was Halo that have the micro do weapons that would just like explode somebody. Do you think that we're on the precipice when it comes to technology to advance to the next, like these do weapons, I imagine, are pretty big, but do you think we'll have like handheld do weapons like we see like in the movies and games and stuff like that? That do you think will
Mhm.
evolve in this next?
Yes, the secret space programs have these already, like your Halo sword, for instance. That is
Yeah.
actually from the secret space programs. Also, like your super soldiers, like Master Chief. The weapons you see in Star Trek, like phasers or blasters, like you see in Star Wars. These already exist, but yes, you are correct, Aubrey, where they are eventually going to have a phaser where you could just literally vaporize someone. There would be virtually no evidence left behind, but as you see in Star Trek, they're using their tricorder to look for molecular damage to be able to prove a murder of some kind.
Hmm.
You're eventually going to run into this. What would be handy is if you had a dampening field that would, I don't know, flip it to where weapons wouldn't function on your planet of any kind. Then nobody could do it. It would be a neutral space. You would need a neutral set of laws where people weren't allowed to kill each other. Now, if somebody hacked it and found a way around it, then that would be easily seen. Not that people wouldn't still have their arguments, not that people's viewpoints of view wouldn't be honored. But as he says, pull an Organian maneuver, that's a Star Trek term, meaning a race was telling the Klingons and humans not to fight and making them so they couldn't fight anywhere in the galaxy. With that said, you could apply that to Earth if a neutrality declaration was declared. And enough people wanted this. It has to be of co-creative type of intent. But when it comes to like phaser weapons, and back to the original question, yes, this already exists. Some of it's more like your Star Trek Enterprise, where it was like a handheld little blaster pistol type of deal, or like in Star Wars, the blaster pistol that you see like Han Solo have on his hip. Things of this nature, or like the stormtroopers have them, or to another extent, spaceballs with the machine gun type ones, where your spaceball guys had them. This is actually something that's going to be the next introduced weapon after, of course, powder will eventually go the way of the dodo, and you will have these phaser type weapons that the military, law enforcement, and regular people will be able to own and use.
So with these weapons, if it is alien related, do you believe that either A, do you think this is part of the shared plan to where aliens could abduct and do experiments on humans as part of the contract? Or in exchange for that, do you believe that this technology is part of that stuff that was either A, reverse engineered or just given over to humans by aliens? And which alien group do you think would be a part of this?
You are actually 100% correct, Aubrey. The trade-off was during what they called the 100 Years Disclosure narrative, where people blame Eisenhower for this, but it was actually just a re-up on a contract, and he was actually quite objectionatory to this. But he was put as the fall guy for ushering in the abduction age. And will regular humans get these as the trade-off? Not as part of the trade-off. but it would have to be obtained a different way when the world would open up. Then people would be able to purchase and or trade for these. Now, is it a specific race introducing these? No. It is other technologies that have been back engineered by your military and such. And also when your Adolf Hitler had the Aldebaran reptilians come in to trade some of that technology, as well as later on in your Valiant Thor time frame, Eisenhower was basically told of the 100 years disclosure yield, by which then information would slowly shift over in your academic, government, and political spectrums and private sector. Private sector is going to be heavily involved in delegating this area. That's your ICC, or Intergalactic Corporate Conglomerate, which runs all bigger corporations like your Boeing, Lockheed Martin, etc., Viacom Communications, etc. But is it a specific alien that these weapons have come from? No, because everybody tends to trade in the galaxy. Think Star Wars for a minute. Where it's not like Star Trek, where of course there's issued weapons, like you have phasers and stuff in the Galactic Federation. But with Star Wars, it's more like people are trading certain things to each other in a black market, but they're also trading back and forth with different races. Okay, we have this weapon, you have these particular credits, or you have this particular thing we need. That's kind of the thing that's going on, and some of humans were actually doing the same trading and or finding some ancient sites from the old war time on Earth. Same thing with crashed UFOs. They take it, they back engineer it, they learn what they can from it, and they paste it onto your current tech. But they also learned far more from it and created the secret space programs. You see, this is what's going on.
Hell yeah, pretty good information. One final question, then wrap this thing up. But you covered very good information here. If I guess if this is a natural phenomenon, there's no weapons or anything involved. Do you think that either A, with the way that human beings are going toxifying the world, do you think it could be an environmental, human causing thing? Do you think this problem's going to get better or worse? Yeah, I know it's tough to measure. It's kind of a generic question, but it's kind of been just a few cases every so often here and there. So I don't know if it's going to eliminate and it's done, or if it's going to ramp up and there will be more.
As he said, not all the cases were reported, but are there environmental energetic conditions that could do it? Yes, some people like to attribute to climate change, but if it were a climate change that actually would cause spontaneous human combustion, interacting with certain mixes of chemicals in certain people, you would see far more deaths from it. I mean, certain anomalies and phenomenon can do it. It'd be like if I fired a phaser at you or had one like they showed in Next Generation one time, Star Trek Next Generation, where it was a Ripper device from the inside out, causing the combustion with some ashes, bubbling ashes on the ground and chemicals. But with this, with an anomaly, could this do it? Yes, there was an anomaly up in Canada one time that disappeared. It was from the old war times with Atlantis, Lemuria, where it was a scar like your Bermuda Triangle. And what ended up taking place was this would rapidly age somebody and turn them to bones and ash immediately. This anomaly has since been closed. But your deep state actually did not want that there either, because it was an extreme inconvenience to them too. It hurt their people. So what they did was they walled it off with concrete for a little while, and then they were able to finally close that doorway. So this actually happens to where there are certain energies that naturally will come in that mimic these experimentations a little bit, that are of a natural type of combination of chemicals and energies that interact with people's bodies. And the deep state and elements of the deep state are hoping that people consume enough of the junk they put out there to then they won't have to target anybody. They would just let natural earth phenomena do it for them. And this would conduct a purging going on. And this is why, for the reason for this show and the reason we're speaking now is to inform to this. It's the same as if you were observing a subject, you are changing the nature of the subject just by speaking it or seeing about it. The same goes like if you're observing Schrodinger's cat. It's only dead or alive as long as you are observing it. Otherwise, it's both dead and alive at the same time before you see it. A particle wave becomes an energy wave type of thing. This is essentially the reason for bringing this information out, because it spreads via the butterfly effect everywhere. Not that this topic hasn't, but the thing of it is, we want this to cease completely. So, with a way you can protect your insides from it. This is not also what has been talked about. There's elements of colloidal silver prevent this, as what was said from the silver lining. Let's just say, so here's a silver lining. Some colloidal silver, and also making it so that your body is more attuned into both an even balance of acidic and alkaline. Alkaline, the chemical reaction for spontaneous human combustion, the way it starts is in a very acidic bandwidth. So you have to balance out and become healthier. You're at less risk for this. And also the smokers and the alcoholics, he was right a little bit about the alcohol, but they mainly hit people that were more into these vices, you see. And it wasn't complete cover story. They tried to just focus on that, the vice, instead of, oh, yes, he smoked, she drank, or she smoked, he drank. But that's not the only thing. It's the fact that somebody was more predisposed, and also the fact they were targeted. But if you want to prevent this altogether, I would highly suggest that you get your body into a more alkalized state, balance the acids and the alkaline in your body, because if you start getting healthier, it is less likely that they're going to want to target you, for one, because of the fact they want to blame it on something else, like vice, like slovenly living, or some really bad eating habits, things of that nature. Or in some cases, they try to do it on climate change too. They would switch over to that if everybody was healthy. They would switch over to that narrative. But they want you to make you think that it's just vice doing it. It is actually a targeting that's going on, or experimentation and or manipulation. But if you want to negate that narrative, I would highly suggest you get yourself into a healthier spot. Then it's less likely they will use that particular narrative to dictate the lore of this subject.
Very good information. I pretty well summed it up. I was just trying to scan through an article with some of the information you were saying, and yeah, it all lines up pretty good with these weapons and everything. It's just crazy. Thank you for popping through today. This is a wild topic. I don't even know how to wrap my head around it, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you don't want to explode with excitement here.
Basically.
Yeah. Or spontaneously combust because you're so excited about the topic. So, even though this would have been a good Halloween topic, it's good to kick off the Samhain season right now, or Samhain, whatever you want to call it, or Samhain, with a topic such as this.
Yeah, warming up the flames for Halloween, baby.
Yes, we're getting you all warmed up for Halloween, pun intended. So, I thank you for having me on again. We will speak very soon.
Thank you.
Yes, Isaac is the easiest of them all to channel. So
Pretty good channeling, I'd say. There's quite a lot of information there.
See, he's related to me, so there's also a genetic frequency similarity. It's also easier to do the channeling as well. So, since he's also a physical being in a different dimension, it's very easy for me to channel, since he's a family member. So, it's actually quite simple. So, with others, it depends how far up the ladder they are frequency, or how more displaced they are from my frequency, depending how difficult it is.
Willingness.
Yeah, willingness too. Some just don't give a crap, I've noticed. So, but some are very interested in talking, and I might have an incompatibility issue physiologically. And I will say this, that an incompatibility will cause situations like spontaneous human combustion. And also, like if a being wanted to channel or do something and went whoops or something like that. I ran into a gnomish figure one time that my energy was completely incompatible with, and he couldn't talk for very long because my body was not reacting. And also, here's another angle people have not considered as well. There are beings in other frequencies. If they approach you as a physical being, even though they may be in a different dimension, your body will react as if it's dying. Like you'll go through a bit of a fight or flight, or like, oh God, the cells are dying. It's because your body's reacting as if they're spirit, because the energy is faster moving or higher up. So your body reacts this way. And I could see an accidental encounter like that causing spontaneous human combustion, to tell you the truth. I could see an accidental encounter causing the chemicals to react a certain way or the physical form to react a certain way. I could see that, but I don't believe that's the majority. It might be 1/100th of them, you know. But I could see, given that, that's another angle. And that does happen where you do encounter and your body reacts as if it's dying. I channel, sometimes a certain being, like I brought in Odin and other beings, your body will react like afterwards, like, was I dying? What's going on? That's how the cells react. Because you get somebody that's such a faster moving and high up, the body reacts as if it's spirit. And so it's really weird. It's an encoding, decoding issue the cells in the brain have to that. And it's a natural thing. People will adapt over time, but or you start to blend with the being, and you sometimes can't tell the difference if it's you or them. That's why I filtrate very heavily with that, to maintain separate identities. You have to get used to saying, okay, this is him and I am this. So so that's why the I am presence is being so screwed with right now, with the drifty theys and thems and stuff like that, because they're getting people out of the I am presence, so the solid, grounded I am present. It's a spell. It's a very drifty spell that's going on right now. So that's some of the identity. If they can get you to not know who you are, you have no defense against any of the experiments they're running. So you have to be grounded in who you are completely. Know who you are completely. And if you don't, if you're confused, then you have no defense against these attacks. So that's one of the main ones. You have to do the shadow work and know who you are inside. So if they can take you away from your own core identity, then they got you. But that's I'm good at this point. Aubrey, did you have anything else to add?
Well, very good information today. We hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys sparked your interest back into this topic. Like I said, it's not majorly talked about a lot, and it's kind of forgotten about, but it pops through every so often. So we hope you guys have a good beginning to your Halloween season. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Yeah, the next episode should be the Halloween one at that point. So thank you, everybody, for watching this. You are now exiting the conspiracy sector. Bye-bye now.
Adios.